Right, so I've got a hold of this, the full Tumultuous Petitioning Act, which I've been wanting to see. And I don't know whether this was not turning up in search before, or if someone's just put it up, or what, but it's appeared anyway out of the ether. I did try searching for the full act, and now I've found it, or it's found me. So, the 1661 Act. So, Tumultuous Petitioning Act, 1661, 13 Charles 2, Session 2, C5, an act against tumultuous and disorders, upon pretence of preparing or presenting public petitions or other addresses to His Majesty or the Parliament. So, what we can understand just from that, just from this introduction, just from the title and the first part, there is lots of information to recognise, to hold relevant, to consider in connection with this. Now, the first thing to know is that this is Charles, and this is after the whole escapade with Oliver Cromwell. And this is when the royals come back in. So following, the libertarians, the people who are supposedly opposed to the royals and representing freedom, obtaining freedom and having a liberator, now you've got the royals coming back in, and they are definitely hitting hard back with this act, which is symbolically some restrictions and prohibitions on petitioning. But still, even at this stage, we don't actually have the right to petition that we commonly refer to, the 1688 Bill. But we have petitioning, but either of houses of Parliament or the King, and clearly you have a right to do it, but you don't actually have to have a right to do it. And this, nothing else is stopping you from, because it's not something that you need to have a right to do. It's something that you do, like sending a letter to someone. It's just basically essentially that, a request. So, but they were trying to charge people money for doing these things and having to, go through a lot of the articles and these other procedures. Now, with this act, in this opening part, this is absolutely amazing information. The 1661, 13 Charles II, Session 2, C5, an act against tumultuous and disorders, upon pretence of preparing and presenting public petitions or other addresses to His Majesty or the Parliament. So this would suggest that when we're talking about petitioning and petitioning rights, it does include the King and Parliament, according to this. And it includes, within the subject and scope of petitioning these governments, includes what we would call disorders in public, through the process and procedure of collecting these signatures and petitions and clearly promoting them to make people aware of them and handing them in. So this is absolutely priceless. I mean, this is the thing that you would clearly want, Joyland Mohan's glasses would steam up and he would need to wipe them with a car leather. The Joyland Mohan should be dancing down the streets with joy with this in his hand. Surely, because this absolutely clearly brings within the context of an act on petitioning, and when we're talking about petitioning in acts, particularly in regards to anything that we're prosecuted for, not merely possessing them, broadcasting them, speaking about them, presenting them, disorders upon pretense of preparing and presenting. Well, what even is presenting is letting the government know about it which Extinction Rebellion really do let people know about it through disorders. I mean, this should be like a gold nugget, yet no one talks about this act. Parliament know about it because I overlooked it a few years ago because I actually had a document that mentions it from just government's general referencing advice, mentions it, but I haven't had the full act, and I only became aware of it by chance, actually. And even Edward Fitzgerald, in his entire Smoke and Mirrors work, I typed the search in, and he doesn't mention it once. So surely this is something, and you need applicable applied logic. You need to use applied rational significance, context, understanding, reflection, contemplation. You have to embody the scenes and scenarios, and actually, they are adding more context and volume to the scope of these documents and what they pertain to. So, this Jonathan and Fuller should really, be very interested in this document, particularly if he's, meant to be involved in actions and, he's going to court cases all the time where people are partaking in these disorders upon presenting their petitions in various manners, legal representations, public addresses, broadcasting video, film. So this is actually how the act goes anyway. So we'll get into the actual act now. Whereas it hath been found by sad experience that tumultuous and other disorderly soliciting and procuring of hands by private persons to petitions, complaints, that's complaints by the public, like you got these people kicking Just Stop Oil people in the head. Surely that is more than a complaint. It's actually assault. Remonstrances and declarations and other addresses to the King or both Houses of Parliament. So this is actually before the 1688 bill, which says the subject has the right to petition the King. So it's looking like, we could argue this either way, but surely this really zones in on the very strong premise that when we're talking about petitioning the King, we're talking about either of Houses of Parliament or the King, because it's His Majesty's government. Possibly even the local council, because the council chamber is, it's with the authority of the King, with the mace, and it's, we refer to it as, .gov. All the local council websites are .gov. It is the government. It's the local branch of the government, and they have chambers and make decisions and matters for local things, but it's still His Majesty's government. And you're still petitioning the King. This is why I think it's really important that you can sign petitions like for Stonehenge in Wiltshire and so forth like that. Although matters in your own area are addressed to the council, local council. Matters to do with the whole country or the legislation of the whole country or something that the government can do centrally for the whole country are addressed there. Now, again, I have to mention, those 15-minute cities petitions to government. They were rejecting them and they were telling them to take them to the council. Yet, with this Stonehenge Wiltshire petition, why didn't they do that? Take it to the council and have a referendum. No, they wanted to debate it in Parliament because they want the Department of Transport to have exclusive control over it, not the local council. That's something. Anyway, I think that there is an entitlement. I'm just looking for the Act for Local Petitions and Referendums. I'm starting to think that it's the 2011 one which I've got, and it sets out a procedure and process and model, but it's it's only covering, it's only about one subject, which is having a referendum of council structure. But what it presents, ironically, is a structure. A structure for having local referendums and getting them. There is another act which I found, which is meant to have something about referendums in it, but I think that is for national ones, and I haven't actually read that act yet because there's quite a lot to read in it. I don't think that there is another act, and I think that you can amalgamate, because according to that act, any petition that's on the same subject to His Majesty's government can be amalgamated. Surely. So I think that you can tie them all together and send them to Wiltshire Council, and I think that there's an entitlement to a local referendum. Now, Stonehenge Alliance Group have employed with their donations a solicitor, a lawyer, to take a case higher, to this international UNESCO authority for World Heritage status and so forth. But I don't think that they're pressing. I think that lawyer, with all the donations that we're giving, and I've donated some towards it, so surely if you can give money towards, I'm funding, we are funding the case, so surely we can speak to the solicitor, I can speak to them, I want them to also look into a right to have a local referendum, because because there's over 26,000 signatures, and there's an entitlement to one. When you amalgamate them all together, they can be used for local referendum. I think there's a legal entitlement. Anyway, so we've got this context now of Parliament for alteration of matters. Right, so this is the sort of things that you were petitioning about. So, for making and changing of the law, redress of pretended grievances in church or state, that's religious or, democratic matters, or other public concernments, things the public are concerned about, have been made use of, serve of ends of fictitious, seditious petitions gotten into power to the violation of the public peace. So basically have gotten into power to the violation of the public peace. That's actually public peace. And have been a great means to the late unhappy wars, confusions and calamities of this nations, for preventing the like mischiefs of future. So what they're trying to say is this. So the royalists have come back in, and they're trying to make out that petitioning's bad, and they're trying to make out that it's all of the whole civil war and the whole thing is, they're trying to blame it all on petitioning, the right to petition. They're trying to blame, they're effectively trying to blame it all on petitioning. Like he's blaming like the troubles and calamities of the nation. So the royalists are basically trying to make out that because of the right to petitioning, that's why we had a civil war, and that's what caused the royals all their calamities. Faulty towers. It's the people's fault, and the wars. The late unhappy wars. Oh, look, the late unhappy wars. Here we've got some words to read. The late unhappy wars. Now, this is 1661. So, can you see anything interesting about this? This is how it's worded. The late unhappy wars. Well, 1661. So let's fast forward after this was written and well known. This must be a notable act of law, the words of which are significant and known to government people and probably the people. Because if they're going to be engaging in petitioning at the time, they must know the law or have heard about it. Now, what do we have in 1688 with Prince of Orange, William? What do we have? Well, it's called a glorious revolution. The glorious revolution. Glory to God. Why? What an interesting name. Glorious. Now we're having glory for everyone. Reveling in this right to petition, the right of the people is reclaimed, affirmed against evil ministers, judges and councillors. But notice it doesn't say evil kings, because now obviously we've got a new king and he's going to put all the rights right and blame it all on the councillors and the ministers. So the glorious revolution, the shining beam of joyous celebration in the revolution, because rights being restored and given back, and this new king is going to do it. He's laying the blame on the evil councillors, judges, and ministers. Whereas here, when we're having the rights taken away, the royals here are laying the blame all on the revolution, on the Civil War. On Cromwell and the Civil War. He doesn't name Cromwell. I don't think that he wants Cromwell's name in there, because remember, they dug his body up and travelled it around into several pieces. They pulled his bones around on carts. They defamed him more than the amount of defamation that they gave Cromwell would probably put Andrew Bridgen to shame, or Matt Hancock. The defamation is not, it's a Cromwell. They despised every molecule of him. So now so the Glorious Revolution clearly is giving the finger to this unhappy wars. It explicitly is the act of restoration of and upholding rights and immunity, protection, civil liberties, and blaming the evil justices, ministers, and councillors. So that's happy when you're glorious. So here, it's actually got the words unhappy. The king being unhappy about, losing their throne, the kingdom. That, I think this is absolutely brilliant history. This is outstanding information in this act, the wording of it, so have been made used to serve. And so this bit here, been a great means. So factitious and seditious persons gotten into power to the violation of the public peace and have been a great means of late unhappy wars. So again, this looks like a stab at Cromwell, doesn't it? Persons who have got into power. Cromwell got into power. But seditious. So what they're saying, and redress of pretended grievances in church, state, or other public concerns have been used to serve ends in fictitious, seditious persons got into power to violation of the public peace. So here, they're making out that, publishing petitions and people going about these petitions and demonstrations, actions, protests, and so forth, and is being violating the public peace. They're claiming they've got power, but we don't have the Bill of Rights. We don't have the immunity or illegal prosecutions. But people are definitely doing petitioning, and this is also before this one. So where does it come from? Well, I haven't found actually any early acts, but people were referring to this natural law and order. It's seeming to look like to me that the pre-conquest laws, and then we've got Dane law and we've got like the Anglo-Saxons, but there's a lot more of the Irish ancestry and heritage preserved at this time, and there's still a lot of people, still speaking Celtic in Wales and so forth. There are ancient legal systems still known in Wales and Ireland of this people having a say, electing leaders, and also in having an independent judge. And people have a say in it, and they do elect people. Now, this is in very, very ancient Ireland, which is all we've got left of what, the Celtic culture and history, probably a little bit of Wales. So I would suggest, in my opinion, that people, remember that, as we progress from, 1066 and so forth, some people are still speaking Gaelic and Welsh in England, and then as you go, 11, 1200s and so forth, it's starting to recede. It recedes all the way back into Wales, but still the Irish and Scottish are still speaking a bit of Gaelic. So you've got this, people know of older ways of doing things, and I definitely think that when the Romans came over, even then when the Druids were forced out, even then when the Roman Empire kind of even eventually goes, you've still got these pockets, particularly all over. Right? There'd be no Roman coins found in Ireland, hardly at all. I mean, only some around Dublin and the coast. The guy's just shown me a map. Just on this group, he's just put this map up of all where the Roman coins have been found, right along the coastline of Africa. They definitely didn't go into the middle of Africa unless they got lost in the desert and buried in the sand, but I doubt it. There's hardly any in Ireland, and the ones that have been found in Ireland have only been found right, where Dublin, where the harbours are, where ships might have been, not the rest of Ireland. So there was no Roman coins in Ireland, so you've got all this preserved way of running the clans. How do the clans operate? How do the Druids and clans operate? And there's been a lot of Roman coins found in Scotland. So even 1066, when we get officially conquered, we still got them. They know these ways of governing, ruling, doing their legal. So when we know that the people having a say, of who should be running things or what should be run, or at least voting on who's in charge, is definitely got some ancient roots into this this pre-Roman culture that we had. So see that we've still got half the language from that left over. I would suggest that it has been it's been all the way through, although they never wrote anything down. So all we've got, the only knowledge of that we've got is through the the Irish folklore and texts and other medieval writing, and actually them actually doing it. So how it must have prevailed. It must have prevailed through, all the way through. I mean, this is 16, but I've seen some acts in the 1500s, but I don't think that any of them that I've seen. I was reading one the other day. I'm trying to remember which one it was now, but it definitely did not actually mention any particular right to petitioning. But it suggests, people being able to, make complaints and so forth. So this is He's definitely trying to lay on. He's trying to, like, basically rubbish, Cromwell, and lay all the petitioning and the freedoms and liberties, on that, and say that they caused trouble, which is exactly the situation we're in now. This is like in Atlanta. The Americans, who are meant to be all for, liberty and the flag and, free speech and, salute the flag and, the First Amendment and all these Americans, what's happened is they've realised that a lot of them are against that. They don't like it. Like these mayors, these, Atlanta city people, Biden, but yet Biden was up the other day going, "Oh, democracy, he's going on all this." He was, apparently they've caught him lying, saying he used to teach and lecture on, democracy when he didn't, or something. But he said, "Oh, I'm trying to preserve democracy. I'm trying to preserve it." Well, basically what Biden means is he's trying to preserve himself. He's trying to preserve him. He wants to preserve his party, and he wants to preserve his power. He doesn't actually believe in the freedom of speech, the right of the people to vote and decide. Because everything that's happening now in America by the governments is anti-people deciding. Now, the ironic thing is that in America, they've got an insane number of elections. They vote in all manner of people. They vote in, I think they vote police chiefs. I might be wrong on that, but they vote in all these senators, governors. There are so many figures who are elected by the people, voted in, that I don't know. So they must be just like always electing and voting on people. It must take up a lot of their time. So, but this actual petition to stop this Stop Cop City thing is a big thing. But people don't even bother getting referendums. But they're spending a lot of time on elections, but they're not spending time on referendums. Now, these people who end up getting elected themselves don't really seem, when it comes down to it, to be that keen or interested in the actual freedoms of the people. They're wanting to be the ones who, they introduce the legislation, they make the decisions. Oh, we've been voted in, So again, it's getting people into, people like having power in America. And then you've got all this giving power to lower courts, people like suing each other. They've mashed up the whole constitution by giving these courts lower powers, and they didn't really know what the fuck they were doing. And they've ended up kind of like diluting it all down. And now, the police are even attacking people to do with petitioning, and even shooting some people, shooting drones down that are filming, gathering evidence and informations. Petitioning is a legal proceeding. So it does the whole endeavour, the whole field of subject, I think in England, Parliament are trying to pass it off as like, look, you hold a bit of paper with a clipboard, you walk around, you can speak, you can talk, you can get a scribble, and you can, that's it. That's all it covers. They're trying to pass it off that it doesn't include any breaking of violations of the public peace, and all these other, seditious or disorderly behaviour, right? Because if they can say that it's got nothing to do with disorderly behaviour generally or breaking the public peace, they can claim that the 1688 bill, when it's talking about petitioning, it only mean and must mean opening your mouth, scribbling with a bit of paper, and that's the only thing that you're protected in doing. You've got the right to move your mouth. You've got the right to scribble on a piece of paper. You've got the right to ask other people, unless you're on Facebook Messenger, and you've got the right, that's it, to hand it in. That's all it covers. That's all it is. And, that is, you've got the right to do that and nothing else, right? And if there's any immunity or illegal prosecutions, it would only be for opening your mouth, scribbling on a bit of paper or handing it in. No, actually, wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. These bills, these acts, this endeavour, this activity, and all troubles or concerns and situations arising around it, clearly, as stated here, we're talking about violations of the public peace. Also, pretended grievances, like, who can say whether your grievances is real or pretend or not? I'll be the one who decide what I'm, annoyed with and want, to bring to complain about. As if you can't make up your own complaint, about, religions or anything to do with the country or state or government. Cases, basically, cases that you're bringing to the government. Like, it's almost like believe me, there'll be plenty of fictitious criminal cases going on, where people claim that someone's harassed them, or, women claiming that, they've been raped or whatever. I'm not saying that they haven't been raped, but some of them haven't. I don't really want to use that as an example. It's not the best example, but we know there's been some people who make... I was speaking to a woman the other day in the petitioning group, and, she removed me from the group for no reason at all. I posted, the group's about petitioning, I posted something about petitioning, a legal thing that I thought they'd be relevant, like this, which could really, really help them out, right? She removed me. So I goes to her and I complain my grievance. I'm like, look, it's illegal. You can't do that. I'm engaged in this petitioning work. We need to be able to speak. This is critical legal information that I'm trying to help people out with, right? And then she said, oh, now you're harassing me. And I'm like, what? No, this is harassment. What? No, this is me informing you, madam, that you have unlawfully removed me from the group. Would you care to restore me, please, madam, to the group? No, that's harassment. No, well, actually, because I am talking to you about this matter of petitioning, it's about petitioning, it's about the petitions, and it's a petition group, you cannot actually accuse me of harassment because I have immunity through this casework and matter. I am immune from harassing you when I'm talking about this subject, or else, all these people that they're asking to get signing petitions could say that they've been harassed as they're walking around, then you couldn't do it, right? I think that's the only thing that the government, at least Parliament, probably agree that, it's harassment, that it's... at least the government agree that, about the only thing that Parliament, I think, want to agree on is that you can ask someone to sign a petition and it not being harassment. Although it's like rubbing a lamp and a genie coming out, you can ask me once, twice or thrice. This is it. Parliament think that, the right to petition immunity only covers you for not being able to be called that you're harassing someone. But yet this American dame... Now she, that's the thing that she doesn't think that it applies to, speaking to her about it. So, pretended. So this redress of pretended grievances. Well, that's it with women. We've got this Russell Brand case when now there are these women coming forward out of the blue saying that Brand has, mistreated them or whatever, or whatever. Russell Brand's mistreated these sexually assaulted or, whatever, all these women. Why didn't they say ages ago? It's almost like the Jimmy Savile case. Why are they coming out now? Just when he's been on National Geographic, that's got 22 million subscribers, and he might be getting a few more for his channel. And then suddenly they bust this out, the pretended grievances. Well, we don't know if they pretended or not. So, so now we've got the right to petition. You can't have pretended grievances because, who are they to say what you're annoyed with? No one else can tell you what your grievance, what you are unhappy with. If you're unhappy with someone building a house next to you, then it's you who are unhappy about it, and you've got a right to complain about it. They can't say that you're pretending you're unhappy about it. Well, that's why you've got the right to object to it. But now our councils are buffing off or boffing away these objections, casting them aside as if they don't matter, So, I mean, the wording in this is so helpful. It's so enlightening and it helps with really, really, really good contextual relevance to, the things that are involved in all these activities. And the thing, also, the wording of this really... it's got a personal edge to it. It's been made personal because this guy, Charles, he really has, got a beef over Cromwell, because it was, the legacy of the crown being disturbed, and then, Cromwell claiming that he's the Lord Protector and so forth. So that definitely comes through in this. So violations of the peace, So I can't see how Rishi Sunak, this is the thing. You see Sunak and Suella Braverman, Priti Patel and so forth have been making that new legislation, which they used at Charles's coronation, taking those banners off Graham Smith and the Republic campaign, who were saying, not my king, not my king, when they were petitioning in public, claiming that, it breaks the peace. Well, all prosecutions and commitments for petitioning, all of them are illegal. So how has Sunak, Braverman and Patel enacted that? I don't know. You ask me. But they're definitely trying to claim that people might be breaking the peace for doing protests. And this disorderly behaviour in public, and they're trying to make out that they have a right to, Congress shall make no law, Parliament shall make no commitments, but they have done. This is why you see Sunak is not really he shouldn't really have gone for the job for Prime Minister, because I don't think that he's up to it. They're not interested in the law enough. They're not interested in the history. They're more. Sunak likes money. He likes numbers. He's stocks and shares. He's likes advising magistrates on investments. How to make money. Very profitable. That's the thing with Johnson. He likes money. If they liked England, if they loved England, if they liked history and the truth and the law as much as they liked money, then we'd be in a better situation. But then they wouldn't have any money, would they? Because then we'd have, made them make the laws so they don't take it all from us. That I think is the major issue in all of this, So we'll try and go through a bit more of this now. It's not that long, actually, this act. And have been a great means of the late unhappy wars. Well, it's a good job we had a glorious revolution, then, isn't it? Confusions, calamities in this nation for preventing the like mischiefs for the future. So they're trying to make out that by making this act, this law, restricting petitioning, it's going to solve the any mischief of the future. Well, didn't they realise at the time that they would actually end up getting a proper right to petition with full immunity enacted? Confusions and calamities. Well, the thing is, this is exactly what is happening in Atlanta now with Stop Cop City, and their First Amendment right to petition only exists because of all this law, and is there for the same exact purpose and reasons, right? So they need to learn it. They need to get interested in the law, or else they'll end up with Chris Carr in charge, and he'll be prosecuting them, for being, racketeering or God knows what. He'll be prosecuting them for, other pretended things. Well, they're protected anyway. So they're in calamities in America because they've got these people doing these petitions, and now they're having arguments over how much time they've got to collect the signatures. They're arguing, even if it's valid or not, that then they're making them do all these rules, like they've got to have a witness, or, these are we've ended up in calamities now, mainly because they don't really want them to do it and then to succeed. Yet in America, they've got all these different states that claim to have different laws. Yet, Congress shall make no law. But that is the thing is, what if you are in Georgia or California or Texas? When you are petitioning either the White House or your local government, you're petitioning them with a right to petition under the Constitution of America. It's not, the state hasn't invented petitioning. There isn't a law in Georgia saying, you can petition in Georgia, if we wanted to, we could stop you, so you can't do it, but what we'll do is we'll make a law to make it legal. We'll actually invent it, and then we'll make some rules up around it. Oh, no, just a minute. You don't need to invent it. You don't need any laws around it because people were doing it even before 1661. It's just something you do, right? No, actually, we're going to start our country here and we're going to divide it up into 50 states, but we're going to have these laws that apply to the whole entire states of America. And those will be that, the government, Congress, shan't make any laws to, restrict or prohibit these rights. And you've got free speech to talk about it and, publish it, obviously, so people can know about it. Use of press. So, right, they should be the laws of the whole of America. Right, now, so you've created addressing governments with grievances. Now, if that is not also the one, same and only method of which you do the same to your local town or council, then I don't know what is. You don't need to make another one up. That's it. Now, you can't start pulling strings and saying, we're going to charge you 50p for it, or you can only do it for, you've got 5 days to do it, or whatever. You're not allowed those stupid rules. They stopped them. Because this here, now, is going to make up loads of stupid rules, right? About magistrates and other things. So, and then after we get the full immunity and the not being allowed to be held to any commitments. So, unfortunately, the American system has literally been diluted into water. I think it started off with good intentions, and it ended up, with these lower courts having all these, being allowed to have all these cases. It ended up, they pissed it out, So we didn't start the fire. It was always burning, and then we pissed on it, So like everyone's like wean on it, wean on the rights. So why would you? The thing is, if you had all these troubles with mischiefs and breaking the peace and these disorders, why would you then, specifically on the very subject that all this is talking about, conjure up, after your glorious revolution, a special enactment to not only give you the right to do this without being liable for any prosecutions, but also not be held to any commitments either. And in fact, what about these illegal prosecutions or prosecutions by the King's Bench for matters that you're bringing only decidable, debatable in the Parliament? And, and also, besides illegal prosecutions and any other diverse or arbitrary means or things that you might try to pull on them, right? For what? For addresses to either of the Houses of Parliament or King, right? And how do they get there? Because you go about this business of collecting it and submitting it and handing it to your ministers. So, here we go into the enactment. Be it enacted in the King's most excellent majesty. Wow, that's something that we know in the law. So, they was using that in 1661, that. By and with the consent of the Lords and Commons assembled in Parliament, and by the authority of the same, that no person or persons whatsoever shall, from and after the 1st of August 1661, solicit, labour, or procure the getting of hands or other consent. So that suggests that you can consent verbally by saying aye. All persons say aye in favour. Aye. Doesn't even say that you have to have it in writing here. or other consent. So you can have consent, none without signature, which I am recording this with my voice, right? You know, in fact, I've just watched a video of Alexander Bell, actually, and he's got this, like, magnetic... They've resurrected his voice. They've actually... there's some, like, magnetic drum or something that they must have been experimenting with back then, but they didn't have proper... tape recorders or anything, and they've got this Alexander Bell's voice that they've, like, resurrected. I don't know how I'm getting into looking. Oh yeah, because I was looking at the electric telegraph wire, like, you know, the electric telegraph which they had before the telephone. That was just that was sort of invented after the First Amendment. You know, the freedom of the press. If they'd have invented the electric telegraph wire, I'm most certain it would have been the freedom of the press and the electric telegraph wire, unlike the telephone as well in the First Amendment. But I think the electric telegram wire just missed the First Amendment and came a little bit after. But they used they call the newspaper the Telegraph. Why do they call it the Telegraph? Because it's sending a message like the electric telegraph was. Or other consent. Well, now you see, they're having. You see, if it wasn't, you can't actually sign it with your hand on the Parliament website on the internet, can you? You actually type it on a keyboard, letters. It's not your signature. You just fill it in. So, although it is by your hand, I suppose, on the keyboard, but you can speak. Or someone can... this would suggest that you could go around to someone's house and... if... You see, this now is going to set... This would set Chris Carr's, desk on fire, this. Because Chris Carr is conjuring up all his insane racketeering charges and so forth and saying, they've got to have a witness and they've got to sign it themselves. Well, according to this... doesn't have to be by hand. Can be by verbal consent. That means that you could walk to someone's house and say, do you agree to sign this petition? And they say yes, and then you can write it in for them. How about that? You see, I think in voting you can have a proxy. When you go to the polling station, I think you're allowed to be a proxy voter for people in your house if they ask you to. As far as I know, you can do that. So that's going and voting on behalf of someone else, right? This is suggestive that you can do it without having to have a signature or a mark, a cross. If they do solemnly consent and you ask them, then you can make note of it, right? But how you would check, you'd have to have their name and details. And then, when you hand the petition in, you could say, well, all these people have consented. And then, then, if you've written the phone number down, then Parliament can ring them up and say, did you consent to this petition when you were asked? And if they say yes, then there you go, check, done. So this would literally completely and totally write off Atlanta City Hall. Literally, this would have, like, Chris Carr's head would be twisting round like on The Exorcist, and he'd be like climbing up the walls and across the roof, clinging to it, going, Captain, Captain, where's the captain? Red rum, red rum, red rum, red rum. Because then you could say, you could just, everyone in Atlanta actually probably supports this. Can you check? Well, I'll tell you what, seeing as you're the council and you've got everyone's name and address on that computer system, you can fucking ask them yourselves. Well, that would be a referendum, wouldn't it? If that was the case, then that actually would be a referendum if we ask them all. Well, that's what we're petitioning for. And we only have to get, whatever percentage of it is for that. That's why we have to get a small percentage number. What we're getting, but you're making us, we've got a certain time limits, and then, it's all got to be with a witness, and then written by the hand or whatever, or it's got to be signed. Well, not according to this, 1661. Is there other consent? For any persons above the number of 20 or more. Right. That no person or persons whatsoever shall from that day solicit labour between hands persons above the number of 20 or more to any petition, complaint, remonstrance, declaration or other address to the King or both or either houses of Parliament. Again it says. But if it's only 20 people, you're not going to have much evidence of support. So that means they're only accepting small petitions, but they could be. How would you prove that? That means that's not stopping you submitting a very, very, very substantial body of evidence. I mean, that's saying that you could have 19 signatures and, an extremely strong case. Evidence. Very, very strong evidence, right? And you can submit that to either of the Houses of Parliament or the King, right? In 1661. Which basically means that, you see, that would write off the Petitions Committee. If this 1661 Act had been enacted yesterday, that would mean that, you can petition Parliament. Actually, you can't. You can't collect 100,000 signatures. You can't collect 10,000. You can't collect 100. You're allowed 19. You're allowed 19 signatures, right? But you could, but what would you substantiate that with? Evidence. Well, that's the thing. The Parliament don't want you to attach the evidence. You can have 50 words. You're not allowed to have any links. Nothing that's not on the Parliament's website is true. Well, the way that Martin Day sees the world is that the world is a lie. Every website is fictitious. Every time you fasten a link, they don't believe it to be the truth. It's almost like, unless it's published by Parliament, it's not the truth. I don't know how they're not closing down all the schools. Does that mean that if you put a link to a school or a university, it's false and you can't accept it? They can't accept it. You're trying the information, So, I mean, you want a very, very strong case, or else it's frivolous and weak, as it says in other acts. Frivolous and weak. They want you to have a weak case with strong support. What is the point in having a very, very weak case with very strong support? I mean, when they're the ones debating it, they will say that, it doesn't matter how many people support it, it's a weak case. Right, where having a very, very strong case, which compels them to act, but not many people support it, on the strength of the evidence. You want both. But anyway, so if they're having over 20 20 signatures or more to any petition for these, all these matters established in law, church or state, unless the matter therefore have been first consented unto and ordered. Consented unto and ordered. So it means you've got to have consent. See, this is really what the Petitions Committee are trying to do now. This is what Martin Day and the Labour Party and the Tory ministers are trying to do now. They're trying to act as if you have to have this consent. There is no law now of consent being required to petitions, none. In the right to petition, you don't need consent from anyone, from any minister, from any justice, from any councillor. You do not need consent, right? But yet, the standards, the petitions committee, their standards, you have to have consent whether it's to their standards or not, or whether the information is true or not. Well, actually, we're asking the people to sign it, actually, first. That's even the first early stages. What do the people think to this? And then on the basis of that, whether they agree with it or not, then you would debate it. There is no consent or not, to get all the signatures on that evidence case and then submit it. They're not even letting you run it. They're debating it out. And they have no right to. Martin Day MP has no legal right. We don't have to have any. I don't need no consent from no Geordie woman, no Labour Geordie woman, no Angela Rayner, no Martin Day, no Rishi Sunak, no Keir Starmer, Jeremy Corbyn. I don't need consent from no one to submit. No one. And here, they're trying to have 3 by consent and ordered that it can be given to Parliament, either of the Houses or the King, if over 20 signatures, by 3 or more justices of the county. Someone said that it was the Magistrates of London. So if you've heard me in other videos talking about the Magistrates of London, that's what one information source claimed, Magistrates of London. But it's actually of the county or by major part of the grand jury or the county division of the county where the matter shall arise at their public affixes or general quarter sessions if arising in or if arising in London by the Lord Mayor, Alderman and Common in Council. If in London. So, but what about petitions that were to the local council? That's the thing. What about petitions that were addressed to the local council? Still His Majesty's government, but not either of the houses. Major part of a grand jury. But that would suggest that the grand jury there was an alternative to the justices. The county division of... Is that the local council then? The matter shall arise at their public affixes or general quarter sessions. Or by the Lord Mayor if it's in London. So is that effectively the local council then? I think this is local council. But or... It's saying local council or a grand jury or 3 justices. So basically, but what about matters that are not going to either of the Houses of Parliament? Ones that are going to the local area. So that was they go through this anyway. So it's saying that I think that in my interpretation at this stage now of this, it's kind of almost like you've got to basically petition the local council, or you are actually petitioning the court itself to see if you can petition the government, or maybe if it should go to Parliament. That's what it's looking like. And so if that was the case, then surely that Stonehenge petition should have gone to Wiltshire Council and or local grand jury or justices first, and then see what they think to it, or if it goes to Parliament, surely. But now they've scrapped this now. So now it doesn't have to go to the local authorities. To me, that is the abolishing the involvement in local authorities with matters that are going directly to Parliament. Now, if it is directly a local matter that you're not sending to Parliament, but to this local area, then you need to go to Parliament anyway. This does suggest that petitions can be... well, they're not deciding on the petition, though, are they? That's the thing. A local council's deciding on it. If it's to the local council, there's a hell of a lot of signatures, though. If it's over 20 massive amounts of signatures, you would have thought the opposite. You'd have thought that if it's only a small number, then it would go to the local first, and then if it was a lot, then it would have the right to go directly. But they've got the opposite. So but they've got rid of this now. And also added the immunity, and that you can't be held to any commitments like this. Now, the thing is, with the petitions that are to Parliament and not to a local authority, the local courts and jury aren't to get involved anymore. So why are we, when it's a case that we have initiated, because that's what a petitioning is, it is a legal proceedings in a case, as set out. Even actually before this act, we've got that Karen Bowie paper that I've been through in another video where it's all about the Lord of the Articles as well, and so forth. Lord of the Articles. You don't have lords in local councils. So I don't know why, when you are doing acts and actions for petitioning under the 1688 bill that are protected, you're protected from prosecutions and being held to commitments like the one that's highlighted in blue. That's a commitment that if it's over 20 signatures, it's got to go through there. That's a commitment, right? But also protecting you from being prosecuted. But what would you be prosecuted for? Well, according to this, breaking the peace or disorders. Well, what are the type of offences that Big Century Rebellion and Just Stop Oil are getting prosecuted for? Well, breaking the peace and disorders, rebellious behaviour, and so forth, like we've read before. So, if that is hot on the topic, and if that is acts and actions that are explicitly covered in a bill on petitioning, then why would those acts and actions not be explicitly also intended when later on they make a clause which says they could have used any word in the dictionary that they had at their disposal? All prosecutions are illegal, right, for bringing these cases and all commitments. So, I don't think that local courts and juries are supposed to intervene or get involved in petitions to the Parliament. Now, the thing in Atlanta is that it's not a White House petition or federal government when they're petitioning the city. But this is suggesting that you don't have justices or a jury getting involved in petitions, but you're petitioning the council. The council, it's already a legal case that you've got when it is a case to the council. They're knocking around all these like court cases in America around what you can and can't do on the petition, if it's valid or not. there's one act of law that we've got, is that 1960 Petitions Act, Elections Petitions Act 1960, which is a special process for the checking of petitions, if they're valid or not. And that is after, obviously, if you want to challenge the outcome of an election. Other than that, it's got its own intervention proceedings. You can't, you can't take them to court or sue them in the normal manner. It's a special act that you've got to use. It's a special procedure only for that. And, for the petitioning, and, you can't, there shouldn't, there's not meant to be any criminal cases for it. You're meant to be protected, and they didn't have a police force back then. You are bringing the case, There wasn't no police force like we've got now. So I don't think that the law is written for the police or the courts to get involved, other than in the procedure that you're bringing. You're involving yourself with them, right? But these other injunction attempts and so forth, even this in London, even the Lord Mayor, Alderman, Commons, and Common Council has assembled. So that's the House of Commons, isn't it? If it's in London. If it arises in London by the Lord Mayor, Alderman, and Commons and Common Council as assembled, well, that's Parliament, isn't it? So even if in London, but what about a local matter in London, but not national matter? I definitely think that and that no person or persons whatsoever shall repair to His Majesty or to both or either Houses of Parliament upon pretence of presenting or delivering any petitions, complaint, residence declaration, or other addresses accompanied with excessive number of people. Well, we've definitely abolished that now. And I don't think since that 1688 bill that Sunak can, he's enacted they're trying to enact new laws to basically do what this is, they're starting to get into what this actually, this act now that we're reading, what this act is even entertaining or pursuing is kind of like what the current government are entertaining and pursuing. And that's why the 1688 bill was made, and what it protects against. And we're starting to fall back into this. This is what Sunak and Patel particularly are doing. And I don't really think they believe in the British establishment. And I don't really think, I think they're woke. They're like a new sort of, anti-everything, they purport this kind of woke, everyone must behave like, perfectly. But yet they're backing all these big businesses that are coming up with these policies saying, no, we can ban you for any reason or no reason. We don't even need a reason. Well, what happens if you're banning me because I'm black or because I'm a Buddhist? Well, any of those reasons or none. Yeah, but Sunak's just enacted a law, so no one can do that. Oh, no, you can't, we can. This is like the police with we use the law, you can't. We're the police. The police use the law, you obey the law. We're the police, we use the law. You're the public, you obey the law. No, actually, we're the public. This is our law. We obey the laws and we can use the law to get people to obey the law. No, now it's our law. We're the police and you are here to obey laws. And we're here to make you obey them. And now we've got machines. And now the machines are going to make you obey the laws. Well, but machines aren't people though. Yes, but the laws are there for by the people, for the people, not, by the people, for the machines. No, they're for the people, by the people, not like for the people, by the people, for the machines. These laws are by the people, for the machines, to fuck the people. No, it's all the ministers now, you see. We're the ministers. We're elected, and we're going to make the laws what our political parties want, not the people. And we've got our little police force who do what we say and our laws that we enact. And now we've got our machines, and then, the laws for the machines to enforce. Well, I thought the law was for the people, by the people, for the people. No, the law is by the ministers, for the machines. The law is for the ministers to protect themselves and their rich corporate elite using the machines against the people. You don't think the law is for the people, do you? It's by the ministers, for the police. The police use the law, not us. And that's kind of where we are with it all now. And this is really what the 1688 bill kind of protected against. Nor at any time with above the number of 10 persons upon pain of incurring a penalty. All penalties now, not exceeding the sum of £100 in money and 3 months imprisonment without bail or main prize for every offence, which offence to be prosecuted at the court of the King's Bench. Wow! Absolutely freaking amazing. Absolutely amazing. I have been speaking for 1 hour, 11 minutes and 30 fucking seconds. And this is my first full close-up assessment of this document in full. And I've kind of had a look at it earlier. Can you fucking believe that? Andrew Bridgen, have you fucking read this? And yes, I am fucking swearing now. I haven't sworn till I'm 1 hour, 11 fucking minutes in there, Bridgen. Bridgen, can you fucking believe that? Do you actually understand what that fucking means? I am now fucking swearing, Bridgen. You know why I'm fucking swearing, Bridgen. You know why I'm starting to swear, recording this at 1 minute 12 seconds in, when I've got to this explicit part of this fucking act. You know exactly why I'm fucking swearing, Bridgen. Because it's saying that all misdemeanours and offences associated with petitions are to be fucking brought through the King's Bench. Bridgen. And what does the 1688 bill say? Illegal prosecutions by the King's Bench for matters that are brought to Parliament. And you can only bring them if you're doing a petition. All prosecutions are illegal. All of them. Why, including the King's Bench ones, which are the ones which will be brought through the King's Bench if it is connected or associated with petitioning. Right, where actually is Joyland Morham? Has he actually read this? Where is Joyland Morham with his, funding, where is the, car leather for waxing the glasses? And no, I do not mean any insult or, I don't want to upset anyone like, Dr. John Campbell, who might think that I am, I'm not taking the piss. I'm just like, this is like, come on, Joyland, what are you doing? Or should you fucking walk straight into obviously Andrew Bridgen, right, walk straight in with this, right, and stick it up, Penny Mordaunt's pencil case, that's what I say. This wants to go in the petition bag behind the Speaker's chair. If I was Andrew Bridgen, right, what I'd do is I would print this out, right, that bit there, and I would write on it, I would write, Stick Keir Starmer smells of cheese. And I'd stick that in the petitions bag behind the Speaker's chair if I was Andrew Bridgen. And then when it gets pulled out, and then when Keir Starmer reads it out in Parliament, then he will smell of cheese. That is why. Without bail. For every offence. Which offence to be prosecuted? So there are loads of offences. So basically, offences, crimes. You know? What crimes? Whatever crimes they are. Whatever crimes you've been, we can think of. How about, where's Chris Carr? Whatever ones he can conjure up. Whatever ones he can fit in. What can I do you for? What can I do for you? What can I do you for? Oh, racketeering. Harassment. Yes, you were harassing. Not only were you harassing every single person you asked to sign, you're always engaging in racketeering and breaking the peace and the rest of it. How about nothing? None. Zero. Or of the affixes, or does that mean diseases, assizes? I thought they were called the assizes. The affixes or general quarter sessions. I think, don't get me wrong on this, because I'm not saying that I'm completely right, but I think that is meant to be like the assizes. Someone's spelled it wrong. Azzizes. Fixes, the assizes or general quarter sessions. I think that's misspelled wrong, that word. I think that's meant to be assizes. That's meant to be A-Z-Z-I-Z-E. That word there is misspelled. That I'm sure that is meant to be the assizes. Or general quarter sessions within 6 months of the offence committed and proved by 2 or more credible witnesses. Well, you'll be lucky now. All you get is like a ravage robo-dog and a police porn director with a camera walking around, or not even a person with a witness, just like, a machine takes a photograph. We've nearly finished now. I told you it's not long. It's not. This act is not long. That's why I've taken up most of this video by talking about it and parts of it and elaborating on it. This video was to elaborate on it because I knew the act wasn't very long. You can read it quite quickly. So the point of the video is to go into parts of it that I find worth talking about. Well, can you believe this? Can you actually believe it? So if all prosecutions by the King's Bench, the King's Bench, all prosecutions by the King's Bench are illegal. So what can they do to you? Well, it's going to have to, I don't know if we just can't be prosecuted, or if they can. The Lords, the committee, if they can do something through committees and the House of Lords, but then, you've got this whole Gordon Brown messing up the law, messing everything up, basically. But then again, if you're bringing a case, you're policing, you're getting the people in the public interest in what you're doing, and the basis of the law is that if you're acting in the public's interest, you're not a criminal, and if you're wanting a law made or changed, and you're bringing the evidence for that and support for it, you're the one bringing the case. This is like in the Inquiries Act. All witnesses, all persons on the side of the bringing the case have got get immunity. That's just the way it is, because you're bringing a case, aren't you? But then again, what is the basis of the police anyway? What is the basis of assisting offenders? The basis is that you're doing some good, so you are your offences and crimes are overlooked, or set aside, or just disregarded. You are because you're helping a good cause. They're not going to. They're choosing not to charge you. Provided always that this act or anything therein contained shall not be construed. I wonder where they're construed from. I haven't seen that in this. I haven't seen that word in the 1688 bill, construed. To extend or debar or hinder any person or persons not exceeding the number of 20 aforesaid to present any public or private grievance or complaint to any member or members of Parliament after his election and during continuance. Well, that's the committee as well, the members. Or to the King's Majesty. Well, I don't know how many people. Who's going to hand the King a... Who's even ever handed the King a petition? I mean, as Graham Smith? I think that I'm nearly got to the end of this now, but there's something else that I want to note and say that I think it's worth saying anyway. Well, I'll actually say it now. This part up here when it's going on about to the sadness and grief of Charles II, after all of what Cromwell did, and now all these people are using their rights and liberties and causing him great grief, breaking the public peace. Well, there's some poetry in that with the recent King Charles coronation, when it was crashed by republic.org.uk and Graham Smith, and they got all their banners and placards taken off them. And I think Charles didn't want the Republic campaign with a visual presence at his coronation, and he had them all arrested. Well, I think that he arranged for the police, even though Republic had already arranged that they were going to lawfully protest and told the police, but then the police claimed that they haven't and took all the material off them. And I think that Charles didn't want them poo-pooing his coronation, and I think that he arranged for the police to go and get them unlawfully. And I don't even think those new laws are lawful anyway that Sunak's made. I think they're all illegal, those laws anyway, because of the 1688 bill. It just figures. And I think that Charles was basically playing off this 1661 Act. Maybe not that I don't think that he'd necessarily been reading it and thought of the idea, but there's something in that, the whole Cromwell. Then they can't say Cromwell's name, but they will refer to those things that Cromwell did to cause great grief, all that freedom and liberties. Well, Charles is meant to be, Royal Society of Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, all his charities and so forth. But really, I don't think that he likes people opposing the crown, This is why they like everyone, watching Coronation Street and listening to the theme tune, the coronation, loving, adoring the oh, come let us adore him, call it Coronation Street, Fortunately, all those choir singers in the coronation were singing like, why, it's made it sound like, why that vagina, Camilla, why that vagina, Camilla. So, that was quite funny on Russell Brand programme. Anyway, yeah, so I think there was something in that for Charles, to relieve his sadness and whatever, because of all these libertarians. Anyway, so thereupon had nor to extend to any address whatsoever to His Majesty by all or any of the members of either House of Parliament during the sitting of Parliament, but that they may enjoy their freedom of access to His Majesty and heretofore have been used. So they don't want you handing in petitions while they're in session. Obviously, when they're not in session, there's the petitions bag there. How do they get in the petitions bag? It's only symbolic. I don't know if to construe this as meaning that, like if you've handed it into if you've handed it to MPs and it's been submitted to either of the Houses of Parliament, then it's as good as being, addressed to the King, I'm not sure if it means that. But who did people used to approach or go or see the King? I guess you could drop it off at the palace or whatever, but it's not like, number 10, Nigel Farage rocking up to number 11 Downing Street with a box of signatures. I don't know anyone who've handed them in. I've sent petitions to the Queen when she was alive. I wrote directly to the Queen, petitioned her by letter. So I guess people could write to him and send it. They've always had the post service, haven't they? Or some form of postal service. They've had Royal Mail. I think I've just read actually that it was the Royals' own private letter service and mail that was actually they decided to make it available to the public. So mail's always been the Royals' own messaging service that they made available to the public, but the recipient had to pay the money. When you first started out with Royal Mail, the recipient had to pay. It seems ridiculous now when people are buying things on eBay, right? When I know when someone buys it, they pay. But when you're sending something, the sender pays. But when you buy something on eBay, you're the receiver, and you're kind of paying for it. It would be interesting, that whole. It is kind of silly, if it's something for me, I have to pay for it. But then again, loads of people could just send someone letters, and then because they're popular, can you imagine Russell Brand got sent loads of letters and he had to pay for the postage of them all, and he wouldn't be very happy, would he? That'd be quite funny. I think that it's interesting that if you're sending someone a parcel that they want, they really do pay for it because they send you the money first, right? But the receiver kind of is paying for it when they've bought something. But if it's just a letter of communication, maybe they might not want the letter. Maybe they might not want the letter, so why should they have to pay for it? You want them to have the letter or the message. It's very interesting that it started off as the Royals' own messaging service. I think there's some foul play going on when things go missing in the post or don't get delivered or your mail ends up being opened. I've just sent some music to be published supporting Robert F. Kennedy and Marianne Williamson, and I sent it to be published on all platforms, and it had been hacked. I was waiting for it to be published and it never was published, and it had been published on YouTube but not on Amazon or iTunes, and I'd sent it there, and then when I looked it had changed, and then they said that it hadn't gone there, but then I looked and then it had been someone was messing with it. So I've got this premise that the Royals have always believed it's their mail system, and I just think that they intervene. I think I probably send this to Andrew Bridge, and I don't know if he's read this because I've only just found the full wording of this, and I have been looking for it for about a month or two, and it's just popped up now. I truly still believe that regardless of the charities and the RSPCA, and this, they claim that they don't get involved in politics. I couldn't, it's quite the opposite. Everything gets signed off by the king. It's the king's hand. The irony in this act, no one may put their hand to a petition. Nothing gets put through the government that the king doesn't sign off. He makes the law. So this whole thing, whether or not it's stuff that his ideas or that he wanted to make, that he has to, he is actively involved in he's in and around the process. I still truly believe that the royals think that they own, that they were conquered. When you grow up, I've always grown up liking kind of England and post boxes and the streets and the royal family and all that. Not disliking it until I slowly started to realise like they not necessarily didn't like me, and there was strange things happening and going on, and I have come to realise that I think that they try they need people to like them and adore them because of their image, but really they are really in this situation of, we came, we saw, we conquered, and, we rule, and that's how it is. And they rule the post, the military, everything, who can do what and where. And, this facade of, opportunity, freedom, liberty, choose your career, this and that, is being, yes, we've had it a lot better than most countries, but it's been somewhat of a, quite, you can walk out your house when you want and do things like that. It's not like some sort of regime in that sense, but there's always a stiff line just under the surface of that. And I don't just mean the police, if you break the law or punch someone, because why would you want to unless you had an argument, not in a normal day. But this whole thing that, if anyone seems to be doing too good or doing too well, then they need to, it could be in anything, inventing or science or anything, but they award these people, they commend these people, but normally by making them kneel. You got a bit too high, you need to kneel down now. Most of these people are pursuing money and wealth and material things and making money for the government. It's almost like the Success Club. It's like, it literally is like Alan Sugar Dragon's Den. It's the kind of like success cult, aren't we doing well? And what you subscribe to with that belief system is like a lot of the television presenters, be adored. I'm Charles. I am the king is the most adored, and then other people may be adored, in sequential order. If you want to be adored and worshipped, you've come to the right place. Come and join the sermon. And they will. You can preach. Collect taxes, collect money. Knock out products. Knock your socks off with a new food. And be adored. This is what it's all about, ruling. Have followers, fans, but, kneel. You are only permitted to, not, you can outfox the fox, This is it. And I think there are certain people in this country who have not really been that bothered about pursuit of those things, but in their own right might have been doing well. And whenever it's not kudos to the crown, whenever it's, some other entity that may get prestige or accolade, I don't think they like it because they think they're going to steal the glory, which is why we all, it's it's almost like an episode of like Russ Myers or whatever it is. What's that guy who does those weird films, those weird like Planet of the not Barbarella, Queen of the Universe, or a Planet of the Valley of the Dolls and all those type of films. There's some really weird ones. It's like it's like the Coronation Street tune. It's almost like saluting the flag. The way that I've come to see it after growing up what I would call relatively normal kid now is that it's odd to salute a flag. It's like a pole and a bit of cloth. You don't worship false idols. The whole, you see that those Isit Rusmai's, whatever it's called, those films kind of make sex look weird, ceremonial, like they've got them ceremoniously having sex, like for like 5 minutes, 6 seconds or whatever, and then they stop, almost like washing a car. It's like a chore, something you do. Okay, now we get up, now we go take the kids to school, now we have sex. It's almost like a procedure, and that's like saluting the flag. But that's also kind of like when they sit down to watch Coronation Street now. It's on every day. It's not right. It's not normal. There's something really like, the Time Bandits movie with the family and the game show about it all. And the like sounds from the game show, like, the noises that come from the game show, it's not right saluting a flag. You're meant to speak to your fellow people. This whole like, come home from work, then sit down in a chair, then turn a switch, and then a glowing screen lights up, like, and it, it's almost like, the national lottery is Erie. It's Erie, Indiana. Like it's like this every day, the same tune, and it's Coronation Street. It's like royal brainwashing, and I don't think Angela Rayner quite gets it. You need to snap out of it, and you need to get out of the sort of the hive, the hive zone drone of the food and the movies, and but most people are kind of like that, and they're caught up in it. More and more people are getting sick of it now. More and more people are starting to do something about it, but even when you're watching these other TV shows that are complaining about it, it's still getting into some sort of, regime. But anyway, so trying to go off subject, but yeah, full wording of the Tumultuous Petitioning Act. Highly suggestive that when it says in 1688, all prosecutions are illegal, it means it, at least from the courts and Crown Prosecution Service, that's for sure. And there weren't a police force at that time, so it definitely ain't the fucking police. I'm not too sure if they can have committees in Parliament or not making orders, or the House of Lords, but it would suggest that Gordon Brown had screwed all that up himself. So, what else can I say? This is my evaluation of this Tumultuous Petitioning Act, which I think I should, who needs to... And the thing is that Edward Fitzgerald doesn't cite this in his Smoke and Mirrors book, because I've searched the document with word search, and he doesn't mention the Tumultuous Petitioning Act. And this, what I've just read, is probably the most significant, important thing about it when it comes to the immunity. I don't even know whether or not I sent things to people, whether they get them anymore. Like when I submit my music to be published, and I look and it hasn't, it's been changed. Or I send artwork in the post and it doesn't get delivered, and they're meant to return it back, and now it's vanished. I still believe that the royals are owning us, conquering us, and basically controlling, anything that they deem to intervene in happens in this country. Then they just get the, stick the fucking flagpole up the military commander's fucking asshole, fucking Admiral fucking add-on.